Welcome to a special episode of the Resolve to Read podcast. Today, we're taking a journey. We're going on a camping trip, and we're talking about the Bible.
Who are you listening to? Close your eyes, take a chance on my voice. My word will light the way for you. When it's dark and there's no sense moving. Move at the sound of my voice. Move by the light, make a choice. Listen to my voice. I got something to say.
Welcome to the Deal family, the Pola family, and the Sereno family, and the Height family.
Bless you.
Okay. Campfire meeting, Bible talk. This is the Resolve to Read podcast, and it's a little bit different today because we are camping, and I have my family here around the campfire. We do this once a year.
Not everybody.
We have a lot, yes, a lot of the family. The 4 kids are here, so they already know this is going to happen, right, guys?
Yep.
Yep. Bible talk. Eli, Bible talk.
Oh.
Hello.
Hi.
Jenna.
Hi.
Jessica.
Hello.
Alana. And,
Arthur. So yeah.
Yeah, and there's Arthur. He's here for the Bible talk too. He's won. He's ready for it. So, but here's the cool thing. I'm not going to post this till we're done with the Old Testament, and that's going to be like on the 16th, I think. The 15th or 16th. What's today's date?
The Old Testament.
Today's 10.
That's crazy.
Yeah, we're almost done with the Old Testament.
We've been reading the Old Testament for so long.
I know. So what does that tell you?
We're almost done with the Old Testament.
But I mean the fact that it's taken until the middle of October to finish the Old Testament. We haven't even gotten into the New Testament.
God wants us to know about himself through a lot of things that he's done with his people.
So if we leave out the Old Testament, we're kind of leaving out a lot, right?
But we're not leaving out the Old Testament.
We're not leaving out the Old Testament, right?
Right.
And
Right.
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 Right. Good job, guys. Yeah, that's right, Arthur. That's right. So one of the things we learn about in the Old Testament is this story of a nation. Children, do you remember the name of that nation? Israel, yeah. So a story of this people that God has gathered together through a family lineage from starting with Abraham. And God said he's making a people for himself and he's going to dwell with them, okay? How does he dwell with his people? Do you remember the first way? How about Garden of Eden? How did he dwell with them?
He walked with them.
In the Garden of Eden?
He walked with them.
He did walk with them,
Well,
right?
he created them first, and then he walked with them.
This is true.
Okay, on a technicality, yeah.
And they lived in the Garden of Eden together. And then what happened?
Rebellion.
Yeah.
Fall.
Okay.
The serpent
Genesis
convinced
3.
Eve to eat from a tree they weren't supposed to eat from. And then Eve convinced Adam to eat from a tree they weren't supposed to eat from. And then they realized they were naked, the tree of knowledge of good and evil. So they realized they're naked, and so they tried to sew fig leaves together, or some kind of leaves together, to cover their nakedness. And when God came to walk in the garden, then they hid from him.
Yeah, so this is kind
Adam,
of
where are you?
the foundation story. Right. They did what they were not supposed to do.
And Adam said, I hid from you because I was naked.
And so what did this do to their relationship with God?
Broken.
Separation, that's right. God made them leave the Garden of Eden, right?
Before they ate from the tree of life.
Yes. And live forever in this broken state. Yep. So now they've left the Garden of Eden. They're separated from God, but God has a plan. And it has to do with the seed of the woman that will crush the head of the serpent someday, right? Yep. Okay. So now God's people, they start multiplying. And it is now 8 o'clock. There we go. And Abraham, is chosen. And God gives him a promise that does anybody know the promise given to Abraham? Anybody?
His descendants will be more numerous than the stars.
Land, seed, blessing.
Okay. So I like that you mentioned the numerous as the stars, right? Well, if I can't see the stars, I don't really know how numerous that is it?
No.
Have you ever looked at the stars to see how many there are?
Well, it's hard when you live in a very light polluted place.
It is very hard in most areas that we live in are very light polluted. And today we're going to, after we're done, go to the John Glenn Astronomy Park. And we're going to go look at those stars and see how numerous they are. And so that's what God wanted them to look up at the stars and remember the promise that he made to Abraham. So now they're in slavery. Like they start having kids, and we have the 12 tribes of Israel, and they come out of slavery, right? Mm-hmm. And tell me what they come out through miracles. They come out of Egypt, and God is still keeping his promise,
God
right?
sends Moses to free his people from Pharaoh.
Yeah.
They're in slavery for 400 years.
Yeah.
And Moses and Aaron go to Pharaoh and say, let my people go.
They do. That's
and
right.
Pharaoh refuses, and God sends a plague. And then he's like, oh, okay, well, maybe. And then he doesn't. And then Moses and Aaron go back, and they send, and Pharaoh refuses, so they send another plague. 10 plagues it takes for Pharaoh to finally, like, get out of here, go. And the last one is pretty crucial, pretty devastating. And Pharaoh finally says, okay, go, just get out. But then he changes his mind. They all leave. Passover happens. Mm-hmm. They all leave, but then he changes his mind. He goes after him.
Yeah.
Yep.
So who did this? Whose strength was this that freed the Israelites from slavery?
God's thing.
It was God who did it. None of them did it, right? Okay, so now they've gotten out of Egypt, and they're in the desert. They're in the wilderness.
They're heading to the promised land.
And Moses is guiding them, and all they got to do is do what God says, right?
God is guiding them. Fire by day, cloud by night.
Yes, and so they build something.
Reverse. Fire by night, cloud by day.
There you go. And they build something. They each have their own little something to live in, and then they build a bigger something. What is it?
Tabernacle, a tent.
A tent, a tabernacle, right?
Yep.
Jenna, what's you're smart.
Oh.
You're studying for your Masters of Divinity.
Yeah, a tabernacle, that is the dwelling place of God.
Very good.
And they had very specific instructions, and they built it appropriately. It was the place of meeting, the place of meeting with God.
Is it a permanent house of God?
No, it's mobile.
It's mobile.
It's a tent.
Well,
It moved with them.
It moved with them. Okay.
It's God's first geographically physical place that he dwelt among his people.
Right. So they were separated from God from the Garden of Eden. So in order for them to come into the presence of God, what did they have to do to enter this tabernacle?
They had to make sin offerings. They had to
sanctify
themselves.
They had to sanctify themselves. They had to make an offering, all sorts of things, just to be in God's presence.
Well, and even in the holiest of holies, only once a year could the high priest, after doing lots of preparation, go in to actually be in that place where God's presence was.
Right. And now the people are also living in their own little temporary dwellings, right?
Yeah, because they have to move.
Right.
When the cloud moves or when the fire moves, they have to pack up. 2 million people have to pack up and move.
So we're kind of like
right now, if there was, we would have to pack up our tents
and move over to that camp lot over there.
Well, we'd be walking though.
We would be walking.
We have to carry everything.
Could you imagine that, guys?
No.
Let's pack it up.
We have to go over to Old Man's Cave.
We have like 4 different vehicles here right now.
They didn't have vehicles.
Well, they didn't have vehicles. They had some wagons, maybe.
And you imagine 1 million people all packing up. It's time to move on. And then they'd set up their temporary dwelling and live there for a little while till it's time to move on. So then eventually they have a permanent land, right? And King Solomon is the one who gets to do what? He gets to build the permanent tabernacle. It's still not a permanent home for God, really.
No, but it's the temple.
But it's the temple.
It's a physical structure.
And what is the temple, Jenna?
Not intended to be moved.
The meeting place with God.
You just took a red eye last night. I'm asking these questions all the way from Washington
It's where
State.
God dwelt amongst his people.
Yeah.
It's where they housed the Ark of the Covenant.
Yeah, it's kind of like the tabernacle, just with bricks, right?
Yeah.
Just with stones.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And it's where the Ark of the God is where God's presence came. Once again, in order to go into the presence of God. It's not like the Garden of Eden where you could just walk side by side with God, right? And just walk alongside. The sacrifice has to be made. You have to be cleansed. Everything has to be done specifically because there's been sin. And every human since Adam and Eve has sinned and done wrong. And Arthur, that means someday you too. I know that's sad.
Arthur could never do wrong.
I know.
He's got that OG sin.
Born children of wrath.
Yeah, we are all born sinners. That's okay. God has a plan. Now, we keep moving. They have this new temple, and then it gets destroyed, right?
Because they don't honor God the way they're supposed to.
They don't honor
God
God.
warns them about the consequences of their actions, and they do it anyway.
Yeah, they were supposed to
temple
follow
gets
the law.
destroyed.
It gets destroyed. And then they're all taken to captivity. God warned them it would happen. We've read all this. And
The
they're
wall
taken.
gets broken down. Temple
Yep.
gets destroyed. City
They're
Jerusalem's
taken into
overrun.
captivity into Babylon. It seems like the story's over. Would you
Nope.
say the story's over? It sounds like the story's over.
Nope.
It's not over, because then God raises up a new nation ruling the world, Persia, and they do things different than Babylon. And they would say, hey, you need to go back to your land and just go build your temple again.
And Nehemiah goes back and helps the people build
I
a
mean,
wall.
that's quite a miracle, like us finding
Rebuild
this
the
camp lot.
wall of the Jerusalem.
Yeah, it's quite a miracle. It looks like they were dead, good as dead. Israel should have been good as dead. There's no reason how this should have happened except that God ordained it. And we read in Daniel that it was prophesied that this kingdom would rise up, the Persians. And so now they've rebuilt the temple. It's not as big. And it's there for God's presence, right? Now, move forward. Now we're in this intertestament period, right? That's where all of our readers are. We haven't started the New Testament yet. And as they have reinstituted some of their feasts. Okay? So we named one of the feasts. It was Passover. Another big feast they reinstituted was the Feast of Tabernacles. And my children, do you remember why they did the Feast of Tabernacles?
To remember the times that they were homeless, that they were dispersed, that they didn't have their land, that they were longing for the land, and God was leading them there.
And to remember how God led them, led them out.
That's right. So what would they do to remember?
They would pack up and go tent.
They would pack up
Literally.
and go tent. They would build a temporary dwelling out of a certain kind of tree and the branches, and they would cook all of their food outside.
Even today, some Jewish families tent in their backyard.
Yeah, and they would
For
just
Feast
build
of
them
Tabernacles,
temporary
yep.
dwellings in their backyard. They would call it tabernacling.
Yep.
And they would eat their meals outside. Do you think it was easier or harder than in their permanent home?
Harder.
It was harder.
That's the point.
We get a taste of it. I mean, we bring literally a blowtorch and we struggle with the fire. So
Shh, don't tell people. So, yes, let's reminisce, guys,
A
about
blowtorch and starter log.
some of our memories. You guys are all adults now. Some of our memories of going camping during the Feast of Tabernacles every year. What are some of the things that have been a struggle for us? Some of the stories. Go
I'm
ahead.
ready.
Give me
I think one of my favorites was the spider outhouse. It was an outhouse. I think we were at a non-electric site.
That was actually not for Tabernacle.
And we were at a non-electric site, and there was an outhouse. And thank Jesus we had an outhouse, except there was spiders all over it. Daddy
that was
long
before I
legs.
realized we were supposed to
every
camp in the
wall,
fall.
every
Yep.
ceiling, everywhere. On
Everywhere
the floor.
on the toilet seat, in the toilet, they were daddy long legs.
It was like Indiana
everywhere.
Jones in the Temple of Doom when they're walking down that hallway and just, what's that crunching noise? And everywhere there's...
But it was dark. We couldn't see it. It was all
another
good.
good one, we had it like a tree fall
Yeah.
dangerously close to our tent during a bad storm.
We could have died.
Pretty recently, we had our tents flood, and we had to sit in the vehicles in the middle of the night. That was fun.
Yeah, that wasn't fun. That's awesome.
What about when we struggled to cook lunch today?
It was challenging.
It was difficult. It was I don't
It was just
understand
curry.
that. It was just difficult. Yeah.
It was.
We had raccoons that kept on stealing our Oreos one year.
The raccoons, they keep stealing our Oreos. You have to think about everywhere you put your food. One year, what are you pointing at?
Your phone.
What's wrong with my phone?
It's not lit up anymore.
Okay, it's still going. That one year we went and camped in Mohican, and those coyotes were terrifying sounding.
Oh yeah, that was the year that some kids, teenage kids, escaped from some kind of a juvie or something,
juvenile
and
detention
then
center.
we got to feed them and spend time with them until they came and got collected.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I was not there for that
You were
one.
out there for that one.
They were considering whose vehicle they were going to steal. And they decided to just come talk to us instead because we seemed friendly.
And we fed them. We gave them Coke.
And they were
beef
kids.
jerky and
Yeah, they were
granola
scared.
bars.
But they were definitely going to steal some stuff. So everything is very vulnerable here. I mean, we could get robbed pretty easily. Our tents are fragile. We could get injured. It's uncomfortable. How about the temperature at Mammoth Cave? They didn't have electricity there. That was cold.
So cold.
That was so
Even
cold.
now, we're sleeping on an angle, and
It's a little uncomfortable.
you lay down and you roll off the bed. It's
Keep
not.
falling.
Oh, poor Arthur can't even walk no level ground. Right. There's a lot of creature comforts we don't have, right, by tabernacling.
And people do that to remind themselves of God leading them out and how difficult it was, but also how much of a blessing it was for him.
So they
do
need
that.
to be reminded, because sometimes we are not grateful for
Sure.
what we
We
have.
forget. We
forget. So this is just like a little reminder of the good things. I was just thinking through all the stories. I was like, man, we kept doing this. It's wild. It's crazy. But there is something about it that as soon as I get here, it's like I come alive. It's
But
pretty
the coolest
awesome.
part about Tabernacle, you haven't even talked about, we jump through the intertestamental period, and God sends a way for us to find restoration. His Son, Jesus Christ, God, the God-man. And the word says in John chapter 1, it says that he takes on flesh. He tabernacles amongst us. So you can imagine that Jesus is pulling on a tent, a temporary.
Where is he leaving?
He's got heaven because he's God. And now he's putting on this frail human body. He is tenting amongst us for 33 years.
Yeah, it's wild when you think. I love John too. We're going to be reading that here this coming weeks. It says it starts just the same way as Genesis. Does anybody know how John starts?
In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God.
In the beginning was the Word. Remember, God created the world with just His Word.
Yep.
And it says that the Word was with God. The Word became flesh. So I think it's
Dwelt
pretty
among
clear John is talking about who? Jesus. The Word was with God at the very beginning. Jesus was there right at the very beginning when God said, let us make man in our image. Pretty awesome. And so one of the things that we do here is because Christmas is a little crazy. When we started doing Christmas with you kids, it became I have a spreadsheet for all of you guys. I don't know if you know. I started using a spreadsheet to keep track of your presents.
To make sure everybody gets the
Yes,
amount.
because I wanted to make sure you guys.
How much should we spend on? Okay,
we
gotta
keep
spend more.
track of
Yeah.
everything. Christmas, it's good. I mean, I love giving everybody gifts and the fun and the food and the celebration.
It's all fun and games until somebody gets forgotten.
Yeah, well, and I love Christmas. Absolutely love it. And at the same time, I knew that this really wasn't about Jesus for me, at least anymore. It was about you guys. And so I was like, you know what? I read this funny little article that said Jesus might have been born during the Feast of Tabernacles. And that would make complete sense why John would have said, in the beginning was the Word, and he tabernacled. He used the word tabernacled with us. If you look in your translations, it might say dwelt with us, but the word is tabernacle. Maybe that's why John said that, because he's reminding us that Jesus was born during the fall. And if you look at the dates, and I thought, well, you know what? This might be a great time for us to have gratitude. And it's a little different. We're giving up our luxuries not nearly to the same extent that Jesus gave up his, even being in the presence like of God, and even just, just not having then to shoulder our sin then on the cross. I mean, there's so much that he gave up. By tenting, it's kind of the opposite of what we do at Christmas time. Do you see what I mean by that, guys?
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
In Christmas time, we get the extras. And here, during the Feast of Tabernacles, we take away.
Because that's what Jesus did, right? And it helps us just remember what he gave up for us to come and save us and restore that relationship. So all of our readers are starting the New Testament. And guys, if you want to start reading the New Testament with us too, I started re-recording everything.
Nice.
Yes, they're on your podcast. You can check it out on, I don't know, what do you use for your podcast?
Spotify.
It'll be on Spotify. I like Apple. But that's just me. Probably the old people are there.
Spotify is way better, but okay.
Okay.
Whatever floats your boat.
Check it out on YouTube. It's on YouTube as well. But we're going to spend the rest of the evening just enjoying the outdoors. Did you know that also the little tents that they made, you were supposed to be able to see the stars? So they had to have
Remember God's
gaps.
promise?
Yes, to remember God's promise. Exactly.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Okay, guys. Say goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.